Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I am Darren Marble. I'm the co-founder, CEO of Issuance. I'm also an executive producer of the Going Public series. It's my pleasure to introduce my guest in this exclusive fireside chat. Please give a warm welcome to Dutch Mendenhall, the founder and CEO of RAD Diversified REIT. Dutch, welcome. We're going to do this a little differently. We're going to stand. We're going to have a little bit of a different energy and dynamic in this conversation and not sit down. We're two tall guys and these couches are going to make us look awkward. So, Dutch, let's start with the basics. For those who may not know about RAD, what is RAD Diversified REIT?
Well, RAD Diversified REIT, we invest in real estate, right? We combine the art form of alternative investing and doing real estate in a different way with the science and the analytics of being, ahead of the game. And so, we find great deals. We pass the profits of those over to our investors. We pass the equity to our investors. And so it's really people who want to invest in real estate who've always struggled with the barrier to entry. They've, or they don't want to do all the legwork and heavy work. We've had investors who invest $1,000 who are struggling, to get into real estate because of that barrier to entry. But we've also had investors invest $1 million who are like, I don't want to do the due diligence. I don't want to do the property management. And so we take the workload off of them and then we do that ourselves. But I think we're also very elite at what we do. We have a strong foundation, like fundamentals with doing it, but we also have like heavy R&D, heavy analytics. So we know the difference between a market that's going to appreciate 5% versus 20%. Or we know the difference between the supply and the demand, whether we need to be in workforce housing or we need to be in luxury housing, or we need to adjust because of the pandemic, right? I always love what not Joe Rogan, but Dana White said when the pandemic hit. He was like, I'm going to run all over people who don't perform, who don't succeed during this pandemic. And so we kind of took the same philosophy, adapt or die. And so we've adapted and treated our investors well.
I love it. And part of the theme of this conference at Equity Crowdfunding Week is education. And so we're here to educate and teach. And there's a lot of acronyms that are used in this industry and abbreviations. Can you just tell us, for those who may not know, what is a REIT? When you say a REIT, what does that mean? What is it?
Yeah, it's a real estate investment trust. And a REIT is a vehicle that the IRS created so that you can invest and take advantage of a lot of the tax advantages with investing into real estate, but you can do it from a pooled vehicle. So, a lot of people can do a lot more than an individual. In America, people are losing the ability to buy a home, right? With raising interest rates, with how the market has shifted and changed. But with a REIT, together, they can invest into property. Together, they can invest into deals. Together, they can make money. And so it's also with what's coming, right? There's an inventory, a shadow inventory of foreclosures coming in America, whether that's taxes and tax liens and deeds, or that's mortgage foreclosures or HOA foreclosures. Because of the pandemic, it's been built up. And so, the person with the most cash is able to win. Well, as individuals, we're very limited, right, in the amount of money that we can put into things. But as a group, as a gathering, we can put together a lot of money, and we can put that money and be able to win in a marketplace where it used to be only, the super famous, the super rich, the billionaires, they were the only ones that could win, or the huge companies. But now with a REIT like ours that is, public, non-traded, we can win as a group, and that's the fundamental philosophy of RAD is, how do we invest into America? How do we invest into American property together?
I love it. Thank you. And you're not just your typical Reg A issuer. You are, in fact, one of the most successful issuers in the history of the industry. And here you are. I mean, how did it happen? Why have you had so much success? Tell us about some of the metrics if you're open to it. What are some of the metrics associated with your Reg A? How long have you been running equity crowdfunding campaigns? And why is it that RAD is having so much success where maybe others aren't?
Well, I think for a long time I've felt like the little kid outside of the stadium, and I just I watched the industry as a consultant. I consulted real estate thought leaders, real estate companies, and I just would get very frustrated by the amount of crap, the amount of bad real estate, the amount of fake leadership that I saw. And so, at some point in time, I think I just got to a point where with my own investing and my own real estate, I said, look, we got to do this ourselves. I said, we got to do it the right way. We got to do it a different way. We got to put the investor first. We got to really do real estate the right way. And so we started in the beginning with our first, students that were attending seminars. And then they started attending buy trips. And as they attended buy trips, I started looking at their success rate. And I said, I don't want a 1%, 5% success rate of our students. I said, I want a 100% success rate. And I said, what would a 100% success rate look like? And people are like, you're crazy, you're insane. I'm like, no, what would that look like? And then the students gave us the feedback. They said, well, invest with us, Dutch. I said, if you invest hand in hand with us, if you put your money where your mouth is. And at first, when they first said that, it was almost like a little offensive, like put your money where your mouth is. But at the same time, I said, I have to listen to my consumer. I have to listen to my investor, and I have to listen to them and say, how does this work for us? How does this work for them? And so as I listened to them, I said, okay, let me put my money where my mouth is. I talked with my business partners. I talked with my wife, and I said, look, we're going to change the game of our business. I said, we're going to invest hand in hand with them, and this was 2015. And so then we opened our first REIT D. But we had our first 20 investors come in, and we didn't know what we were doing. We didn't necessarily do it the legal perfect way, right? But then I got with lawyers quickly and figured out, here's the right way to do it. The first, private placement into the first deal, and then we opened our first private equity REIT D, and then we opened a second one, and then a third one. But, the reality is, my frustration is those were really vehicles built for accredited investors.
Sure.
And I love when we have accredited investors come in because they put, a good amount of money in with us. At the same time, I wanted to serve the normal person. I want to serve the normal American, right? And I want to serve the working professional who's working their ass off with their money, trying to figure out where to put their money, who they can trust. And that's when the Reg A came to me. And, through attorneys and through my own research, I said, look, this is something that gives us credibility. This is something, the SEC scrutinizes this company. The SEC makes these companies do audits. It's not the mom and pop, the everyday company that is, hires a lawyer, they do some paperwork, and now they can raise money. I don't believe in that. I don't think that's not my belief, right? And so I wanted to separate from all of that competition. And so for us to become audited is a lot of work. The first time you're audited as a company when you're used to just running your own private company is tough. But we passed one, and then we passed two, and then we passed three. And like, as next year we'll open our second Reg A with RAD America.
And so how many Reg A's have you run? When did you launch the first one?
So we launched our first one in 2019,
okay.
And that was RAD Diversified. And RAD Diversified has had back-to-back years of 30% returns. And I'll do those disclosures, right? Past performance doesn't indicate future performance. First thing I tell my investors, we'll never hit those kind of returns in the future, but what we will do is invest in real estate the right way. We'll invest in off-market properties. We'll invest in good value-add real estate. We'll continue to do real estate the way we do it. And so RAD America will be our second Reg A and our second REIT that will be running. And that'll be a little more specialized. So RAD Diversified will always be diversified. It'll have a diversified portfolio. What I love about that is when the housing market struggles, right, our farms make more money. And when our farms make struggle, our housing real estate makes more money. So I like the inverse relationship with that as we balance. And the same reason we're in both red and blue states, right? Because they're treating economics, they're treating real estate differently. And so I like us having that diversification. Whereas RAD America is a little more specialized. It's in farmland and new construction land. And so I look at where our supply is in real estate in America, and I say 2 to 3 years from now, the supply is going to be a real problem with real estate. I say interest rates will come back down. They'll probably still go up again in this next year. But at the same time, in 2 to 3 years, they're going to start to come back down. And because there's just not enough supply for Americans to be able to buy their own homes. And so we'll have that new construction. But at the core of that is our farmland. And the reason we decided to invest in our farmland is because we feel that there's a lot of foreign powers out there that own too much American real estate. We feel that the Chinese government, we feel like the Russian government owning American real estate is a problem. We feel like them owning land, especially farmland in America, is a problem. And so, we're very good at identifying great farmland. We're very good at increasing their income. Last night, we actually just, got a timber check from one of our farms for $750K, which is amazing. We bought the property for $3.2 million, and the first year we produced $750K in income. It's pretty incredible, and our leadership, behind that's amazing.
Well, that's fantastic. And so just at like a snapshot level, you launched your first Reg A in 2019. How much have you raised under Reg A? How many investors?
Yeah, so we're over 5,000 total investors. I would say we're between 60 and 70 million total capitalized raised under the Reg A, right? And I don't want to give specifics because I always want to be accurate, right? But I know we're over the 60 million mark. I know we're below the 70 million mark in total raised capital. We're over $100 million total portfolio in that REIT as far as total asset value of our assets.
So $60 to $70 million, it's absolutely tremendous. It makes you one of the most successful issuers ever, more than 5,000 investors. Who are these investors? What do they look like? Where are they? What are the common denominators? What's the demographic of the RAD Diversified REIT investor?
I mean, one of the things that kind of blew my mind, that fascinated me, is we have a ton of real estate investors that invest with us. People that have done their own deals, people that have done their own houses, that they realize, the returns we're getting are great, and that they, would rather us do it than them and put in that effort. We have a lot of working professionals, a lot of entrepreneurs. I would say we're pretty diverse. If we got true like marketing, demographics, I'd say, we have as slightly more females than we do males invest in our REIT. I would say our age demographic is, between, 40 and 60, but I'd also say, we have more 20-somethings than I ever imagined investing in it as we grow. So it's, very diversified.
And what do you think the primary reason is that these 5,000 investors are investing in RAD versus another REIT or some other real estate opportunity?
Well, I think there's some other great issuers out there, right? I think today, like later today, I'll be interviewing a panel of real estate companies in the Reg A industry. And I think there's some great investments for people to make, and I believe in diversification. I think if people put all their money in one place, it's a mistake. I think you've got to make sure. I think where people, most common thing I've ever heard, that reason people invest in RAD is because we're real. We're transparent, right? We're not perfect. We make our own mistakes, but we fix them quickly. We step up to the plate when we have to step up to the plate, right? I would rather cost myself money or cost the company money than ever have an investor or ever have an individual, right, not win in situations. Even like, let's say I'm doing a joint venture with another company on a real estate deal. I would rather make the other company right than have them walk away in a difficult situation. And it's something simple like we had a residential property that was stolen from us, right? Somebody defrauded a deed, right? Because that can happen in real estate. And so for us, we know that's an 18-month legal journey with our lawyers, and we can fix it. But the person that joint ventured, the individual investor that was with us, right? We just offered him the capital to buy him out so that he can move on, with his life and those kind of things. And so for us, it's just always about taking that right step. And sometimes in the momentary moment, that might be less profitable, right? But the old saying that a nice guy's finish last is stupidity, right? Nice guys win. And in the long run, if you do things right, you win more, your returns are better, you have better team, better culture, better investors, better employees, and it's just our culture. I think the realness is the reason people invest with us and then stick with us and stay with us.
That's a great answer. And how are these thousands of investors finding out about RAD?
I mean, from everywhere, right? Like I was CEO of the month this month with iHeartRadio, and so we've been on the radio all over the nation and podcasts and different things. We do a fair amount of advertising. There's people that are writing about RAD Diversified. We're kind of taking the industry by storm, and so I think they're coming to our website. They go to the raddiversified.com website, right? I'm sure here at the event there's QR codes and different things all over the place, but they come to us, and then we have a pretty easy process. It's always no pressure. We always have somebody they can talk to, always somewhere to support. It's like every month we do our investor relations call. So I jump on the call and I'll do even 2, even 3 hours of Q&A with our investors where they can ask questions, and they might ask personal questions, and we can't give personal financial advice, but I can say, here's where I see the real estate market going. Here's how I see, different situations, that are happening within real estate. I think here's a good place to invest in. Here's, maybe not a good place to invest in as I see, the general, capabilities of what's happening. Like I know we're advanced when it comes to our analytics, when it comes to our numbers, when it comes to knowing where to invest, not to invest, what assets to invest, what assets not to invest. And our track record and history is the proof behind that.
One of the things that's interesting about RAD, which it's really come full circle for me, over the last few days at Equity Crowdfunding Week, you're doing a lot of, events and conferences in real life, in addition to digital marketing, advertising. I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about the strategy there and how important it is to meet people and shake hands and look people in the eye versus, let's say, people coming in online to a landing page where they can learn about the business. How is that strategy played out for you?
Well, it's all about culture, and culture is incredibly important. Now, I think if you have to say, let's have a conversation about the culture of who you are and DNA and those kind of things, then maybe you don't have a great culture. I mean, but at RAD, what I've found is that our relationship with our investors is special and unique. We talked to them, we communicated with them. I believe that their money is their money, and they should have access to their money as much and as capable as we can with our employees, right? I think we're by far the only Reg A company in America that we have a scholarship program for our investors. We have a scholarship program for our employees. We have a scholarship program for their children, right? And that's a part of our DNA and culture. Our philanthropic work, whether it's for Task Force Dagger or Special Operations Wounded Warriors, which are, military organizations that help, with our veterans that 22 veterans in America are killing themselves every day. And so we do philanthropic work to make an impact and make a difference. Or it's Joshua's House, which is for abused and neglected children. If you go on our website, you're going to find those nonprofits, featured on our website versus Fox News or other places we've been featured. We've been featured everywhere in the world, from, Bloomberg to Fox to, ESPN, or anywhere you can see advertising that exists on the world, we've been featured. But none of that stuff matters to me as much as the impact that we're making, and the impact we're making on the everyday life of everyday people that are here in this country. Like, we live, in my opinion, the greatest country in the world, and I, you'll have the haters in the world who want to say other things. I really don't care what they think, right? We have soldiers that go out and fight and die so that you and I can be investors. I mean, how easy is our lives? We get to be investors, but people have sacrificed, so we have the freedom in this country to do the things that we're able to do again and again. And that's, that's why I love this, is we can do this. My big brother, served 20 plus years, and I think I've always been able to have the freedom to be an entrepreneur because of the sacrifices he made. And so we've decided as a company, like, we're going to do more impact. We're going to do more work. The money we make isn't about money. I could care less if I make more money the rest of my life. I have enough to take care of my family and my children. So it's like, what's our impact? What's the difference we're making in this world? And if those who follow our social, those who follow our tribe, you'll see it, that those things are more important to us than the bottom line returns, even though we're going to make returns, because we're still going to do that, which is, very well.
Well, I mean, I think it's fascinating, and it actually separates you and is a point of differentiation, scholarships, the philanthropic efforts that RAD is making into the community. So let's talk about that for a minute or two. Mm-hmm. If we take a few steps back, what is the mission of RAD, right? Because you're talking about programs, scholarships, things that most others don't have. What is the mission? What inspires you? And tell us more about the mission, vision, values of the company.
Yeah, I mean, impact is a big part of our mission, a big part of our values, right? Here's what I know. Is the first family I have to take care of in this world is my wife and my 2 children. And I have to take care of them, because when they're taken care of the right way, then I can go out into the world and be free to make an impact. And then I have to take care of my employees, my staff, my team. Like, years ago, we had an employee, who lost a house to foreclosure, right? And I said to her, look, if you had told me, one, I could have stopped that. But number 2, like, let's get your life set up right. Let's help you get budgeting. Let's make sure that you're supported financially, right? And she's been with us a long time, right, as an employee. But making that impact is a part of our DNA and culture. Now, when I take care of them, and I have the scholarship programs, we have our healthcare, we have our retirement programs for our team, right? Now they take care of my investors. And when my investors are taken care of, now we grow and we expand it's all a waterfall effect with our DNA and culture. Now, RAD, I mean, we're an elite investment company. Don't get it wrong. Like, all the not whimsical. It's all the nice stuff, right? The beautiful part of our DNA as a company, right? But it also allows my people to go and be elite. Allows them to focus on doing things at another level. And so, what if I said, what is RAD? We're a company that believes in people. We're a company that believes in this country. We're a company that believes in being better at what we do when it comes to real estate, everything. We're highly competitive. When it comes to my returns, I let go of what they're going to be. But the competition to make those returns phenomenal by buying the best deals, by finding better deals than my competitors, that's part of our DNA too.
Out of curiosity, did you play sports when you were younger?
I did.
I'm always interested, entrepreneurs that are super competitive and want to win. What did you play?
I played baseball, football, wrestling. I grew up in Iowa, so when you're in Iowa, you have no choice. You're not allowed to live unless you wrestle. And so I grew up in Iowa, but I ended up playing baseball at University of Iowa. So I was an Iowa Hawkeye. But one of the things my wife taught me, and it's funny, is we were literally playing. I had a Dave and Buster's when we might have still been dating, and we were playing Centipede at Dave and Buster's, right? And I was very much me win versus you win competition, that just was in my DNA, right, growing up. And she said to me, she said, well, why can't we compete together, right? Why can't we compete, to be better at this, silly game, centipede and those kind of things. And that was, a little bit of a breakthrough for me in the years that I've grown up. It's like when I used to see wealthy people driving down the street, there was that little bit of, irritation for me, right? And then as I grew older, I started seeing success, and I started wanting to understand success. I wanted to understand how other people were successful. I think I became, more of an abundance person, and I'm raising my children to understand, that this world has everything we could ever imagine, everything we could ever need, we could ever want, right? Two guys like us who are both founders of companies, we could compete with each other for raising capital, and it could even be ugly, right? Or we could say, like, what's the best way to raise capital? How do we treat investors better, right? How does my investor also invest with you? Because I know you have a great company too, Darren, right? And so when we look at that, it's a different way of looking at the world, and at the same time, investors got to scrutinize, it's not easy when they're out there looking at all the different investments and all the different things and who they're gonna trust, who they're gonna believe in. Takes work.
So you actually mentioned something I want to hone in on for a sec, which is you talked about word of mouth referrals. Is that a source of new investments for REIT, for RAD? And why are existing investors referring others? What are the things they're saying to their friends or family about the business? Because that's really the most powerful way for any company to get a new customer or a new investor, right?
Referring is interesting in the investment world, right? Because you don't want to be the guy who refers your brother or your cousin or your friend to a company and then they lose money, right? Nobody ever wants to be that person. But at the same time, when people first invest in something, they get excited and they'll tell their friends and they'll tell different people about it. But everybody's like, well, let me know how that goes, a few years later. Let me know how that goes down the road. Now, when you've taken the risk, let me know how it goes afterwards. So I think where RAD has really experienced more referrals, and I think it's been a part of our acceleration and growth, is just the years, the track record. It's the relationship with investors. I can see I have investors who came today, that showed up in our audience, because we have a relationship, right? I know them, I know what their goals are, I know what they're trying to accomplish, and I've gotten to a point with 5,000 investors where I can't know all of them, but my team and my people know all of them, and we do right by them, and I think that, in the long run, like I said before, when people say nice guys finish last, they don't understand. When you do right by people, you'll win, and you'll win more. In the moment, it's harder. In the beginning, it's always more difficult. But making sure in the right way, it's always going to create that long-term success. And we found that with our real estate, buying the right piece of real estate long-term is always going to win for us.
So I'm interested in diving in even further. You talked about track record, right? You've been at this for years now. And so you've got credibility and you've established trust with your investors to the point that they are referring others in. But you have been at this for years. So what did this company look like at its inception, right? Because I imagine it was a totally different experience. In fact, backstage, you were telling me when you first started the Reg A, you were trying to find the right auditor, the law firm. None of these people wanted to talk with you. Who was RAD? So where did you come from? What did the business look like in years back when you first started versus where it is today?
We were 5 people when I opened the first Reg D, and I think we were like 11 people maybe when we opened our Reg A. Now we're 200 people, as a company. We were at 20 million, I want to say, in total assets under management between all of our different companies when we opened our Reg A. I think we're closing in on 200 million in total assets under management, and so that's pretty awesome, to see that rapid growth between 2020 and now. We're at $10 a share when we first opened, and we're at $22 a share now. So our investors, in 3 years have made 100% return. And yes, the best lawyers in the Reg industry, Sarah and CrowdCheck, they would make sure that I said, past performance doesn't indicate future performance. But, they've helped us, make sure that we do things the right way. And when we talk about, stock price change, when we talk about the difference for our investors, what are the right ways to say it? If you went and said something, we're always going to make money till the end of time and our stock price is always going to go up, right? You can't say that in our industry, and that's the wrong thing to say because, look, this is a volatile world. Every investment has risk. There are things that can go right. There are things that can go wrong, but I think we've gotten to a point now where we're just going to continue to do business right, and we'll always just let the returns be what they're going to be.
And so what is the value proposition in a nutshell someone's in the audience, they're watching online, they're interested in your story, they're interested in this track record. Why should they place capital with RAD? What's the value prop?
Yeah, I mean, the value prop is you buy it at a stock price share of what we are now. So we're at 22 a share with RAD Diversified right now. Our net asset value is what controls whether our stock price goes up or down. So what I love about being a non-traded REIT is with, it's Biden, Trump, DeSantis, if it's, Bezos, Musk, like what they say in the public media doesn't change our stock price. What changes our stock price is as our net asset value increases. And that's what adjusts our stock price. Now, if someone invests with us, we're a little different than a lot of Reg A's. So you can sell our stock. And so when someone goes and buys our stock, and then they decide 6 months, a year, 2 years later to sell their stock, we actually buy it back as a company. We call it a redemption, right? And so we believe our investors should have access to capital. Another thing that we've done a little different than some in the industry is we've done what's called distributions. So we're having specialized events where people can sell a portion of their stock. So 2020, we did a 5%. 2021, we did 5%. But in 2022, we did an 8% distribution, which is pretty cool. But then we're also going to have a second distribution coming in December this year where our investors can sell stock and they can get access to their capital. Because I always heard that was one of the things about a non-traded REIT, right? They said, capital liquidity, ability to have access to their capital, right? I mean, there's pluses and minuses in any investment vehicle. So I started doing distributions, and my investors have loved that, to be able to have access to their capital. Like I've always said, I believe when our investors invest money, it's their money. It's not our money, it's not the company's money. We're stewards, right? We're custodians. Our job is to make sure that money is invested into real estate, it's invested into property, and to make sure that we're doing, right by them.
So I think that's interesting. I mean, it's a notable difference. The idea that you even have a redemption opportunity or you're doing distributions, which in a lot of ways it's not available in a traditional Reg A, Reg CF deal. You've got a company raising capital and they're selling shares at $1 a share, and the opportunity is maybe they go public in 2, 3, 5 years or never. So maybe that's one of the reasons real estate is a big category. I want to talk for a minute about you, Dutch, because they say in investing, when you place capital with a founder or business, you're investing in the jockey, not the horse. And so I'm curious to hear about your background. Where are you from? Where did you grow up? How did you become this entrepreneur who grew a business from 5 people to 200 in a matter of years? What was the journey for you to get to where you are today?
I mean, the journey's long, right? I didn't grow up with money. I lived on my own when I was 16. My business partner, Amy, actually lived on her own when she was 16 as well. So it's kind of one of the things I think that tied us in those early days. We're both entrepreneurs, we were both consultants. And so we both were consulting in the real estate industry, we were consulting in the thought leadership industry. And so, we spent time analyzing businesses, analyzing markets, analyzing trends, helping people, define profit centers, decide what they were going to put their money into, what they were going to invest in. And we spent a decade doing that. And when we first met, it was, we were both consulting the same company. And one day, I know we had a conversation. We're like, man, they suck. Like, we need to not continue to consult this company, right? And it was tough because, the company was willing to pay us a lot of money, but we had to walk away from that money because it wasn't right. And I think that's where we first met eye to eye and said, let's build something different. Let's build something better. And so, on that journey, I had this background as a headhunter and as a baseball coach. Those were the two things I did before I became an entrepreneur. And so, I saw companies and I saw organizations and I saw how they hired and I saw how they recruited. I saw how they put things in the wrong place of priorities and they put things in the right place, for priorities. And so, I think my journey in a lot of ways has been one where I saw things and I can tell the difference between, what's working and not working. And so with RAD Diversified, when we built it, I said, here, I want to build it this way. And as a founder, that's tough sometimes because a lot of people have a lot of opinions about how you build things. And some of them you need to listen to, but a lot of them you need to not listen to. And so the delicate balance between those two things is kind of that unique part as a founder. But also when my investors started saying to me, they started saying, well, Dutch, what happens if you die? What happens if, you become incapacitated? What happens? And so when I looked at it, you say the jockey and the horse, but for us at RAD, we focused more on the horse than it just being pure the jockey, right? So, my brother Dory runs all of our residential real estate. Dustin Warren runs all of our farmland real estate. And it was, for a long time, I was the only true, it was my job to make sure the investments were made and the investments happened. Vincent Perez runs head of our marketing, right, for our company. And so, those are the individuals, whether it's, our COO, like we have a succession plan in case something does happen to me, and I don't, want to put that into the universe. But at the same time, right, as a company, you need to survive. You have to continue. And one of RAD's fundamental philosophies is no matter what's happening, prepare for the worst. Prepare for the worst threat, prepare for the worst economy, prepare for the worst thing that can happen in real estate. And if we prepare for that, then those things don't happen. It's like the first time I put away money. And I said, I'm going to put away an emergency fund for myself, right? Listening to the different, gurus or thought leaders. And first time I had to understand budgeting and credit cards in my early 20s, right? I know some people it's younger than that. For me, it was in my 20s. But then emergencies stopped happening. My car stopped breaking down, right? Different things stopped happening when you put away that emergency fund. And so I've kind of always carried that philosophy into RAD Diversified is we're always preparing for what the worst can happen. And if we do that, then we're going to be okay if the worst does happen. And I think there were companies in 2008 that didn't prepare for the worst that can happen. There's been other companies in the history of our world who didn't prepare for the worst. And it's like, in Florida. I live in Florida. The hurricane came, recently, and we prepared for the worst case scenario. I was, thankful that God protected us and we didn't get the worst case scenario. And one of the coolest things, actually one of the proudest moments as a founder in the history of running my company is not infused by myself or infused by my business partner, Amy. Our staff in Florida actually did a drive to put together, food and put together other materials and other things that people, in the hurricane area needed. And we had nothing to do with it. Actually, the day they were loading up the trucks was the first time Amy and I knew that our team and staff had done it. And that's just, when the culture becomes more than you, when the horse is better at the race than the jockey, I guarantee you're going to win the race.
I think that's absolutely incredible, and you're setting a great example. Let's talk about it for another minute here. You mentioned scholarships, and you're talking about philanthropy and giving back. These are things I think the average startup in this industry doesn't even think about. It's not on the radar. They're thinking about raising capital. Tell us about these scholarships. What was the impetus for them? How do they work?
Well, here's the thing, is we have a culture at RAD where, two of my longest termed employees, their children work at our company. We have husbands and wives and spouses that work in our company. My own brother, Dory, right, it works at the company. My good friend, Dustin runs the head of our farm real estate, right? He was pushing me for a decade to get into the farm and get into investing long before I ever touched it, long before I ever went into it, right? My brother-in-law, runs our marketing for our company, but it goes throughout our company, right? We have a lot of veterans that work in our company, and so the culture for us is unique. It's special. Ask the question one more time. I got distracted by myself. Sometimes
the scholarships.
We're up here a long time. We're going right. These guys haven't been laughing nearly enough, right? We get a little comedy out of them, right?
The scholarships, I think they're incredible.
The scholarships. Yeah. I mean, what sparked it was the kids that have interned at the business. Me seeing the children of my own staff and my own employees go from 7, 8, 9, 10 years old to 18, 19, 20 years old. That's what initially sparked it for me. But also, I believe in a culture where, I want my people to aggressively pursue their own education within our company. And I think, saying that is one thing. But then giving them money to go and do that is another thing. Put your money where your mouth is. And I think that's where sparked the scholarship program originally.
Well, I do want to commend you on it. I think it's worth noting that you're really taking the lead there, Dutch. So congratulations and thank you.
Thank you, guys. Wrap?
No, not yet. I want to talk about your RAD America. Looking to the future, farmland. You were talking about farms, hundreds of acres, 1,000 acres. What's the vision for RAD America and what's happening?
Yeah, so this is not a solicitation for capital. We're not, currently raising capital for RAD America. It is something, we look to do in the very, very near future. We've got to go through, the great, amazing, incredible, wonderful people at the SEC. We want to make sure that, we're doing things the right way. What's going to happen with RAD America is really a part of that fundamental philosophy with our veterans, with the belief in this country, with American farmland. Our country has different threats, right? Everybody has heard, our power grid, is a potential threat. Cyber, attacks on the United States have happened. There are different things, but a lot of people aren't paying attention to what feeds us. And I've always said from the beginning, if I invest in things that feed people and house people, I'm going to be all right. And so when I started looking at the feeding people part of it, I started to study it, and I realized that, foreign countries own over 40 million acres in the United States. That's a lot of acres. That's bigger than most of our major cities throughout the country. And so, we started looking at it, and we also started doing studies, and we started realizing that soil in the United States isn't going to continue to produce good, viable crops, good, viable food in the future unless we take care of it. And so I think I just became a passion project, but then it became income. And as I looked at our first farms, and I said, look, there's so many farms out there. A great example is our Weezer, Idaho farm. And we invested, into that property. And in the first year, we made $550,000 by selling 160 acres of it. But it made only $40,000 the year before because it wasn't being taken care of the right way. But we've invested into it. We've put pivots into it, which is water and irrigation. We've invested into the soil. We've invested into the property. And now this year, it'll make almost $1 million in total income. And so for something that made $40,000 to make $1 million, and you have the duality of improving our country, making our soil be what it's supposed to be, because it's the only asset that's never going to change, right? There's going to continue to increase population, right, in the world, and there's only going to continue to be the same amount of land. And if we don't take care of that land, then there's going to be less land to grow our food to help us, right? And I know there's people that talk about synthetic food and different things, but I'm a person who's a big believer in organic. I'm a big believer in pure eating. I'm a big believer in just doing things, in a natural way. And so as we invested into farmland, we started realizing the more we invest in each individual farm, the more income it makes, the better crops it produces, and the better it is for the long-term part of our country. And so, I think that's where RAD America came from in its DNA, and it's just a general belief. We believe in our country. We believe in our soldiers. We support them. We invest into them, and we invest into their future. And those veterans who may hear this or listen, right? If you ever wanted a company that believes in you and supports you, right? We're a great company for you to join, a great company for you to come work with, and that's important to us.
Sounds incredibly exciting, and like you have some very big things right around the corner in the future. And lastly, how can investors learn more about RAD Diversified REIT? Where do they go?
Yeah, they go to raddiversified.com. Go to our social channels. Our social channels kick ass. Our teams are in the field. Our social team is out there literally as we're doing real estate and doing properties. They're out there showing you whether it's laying a new floor or putting in a new bathroom or making a choice on which house to buy, which house not to buy. And it's whether it's the small individual single house or it's a 40 house deal or it's an apartment or it's a land deal or it's a farm deal, right? We're giving transparency to everything we do. There's never a time where people are like, well, I don't know what RAD does if you're a part of our tribe because we give you everything, right? We have, I think, the best video team in the world, the best social team in the world for sharing that stuff. And so, we want our investors to know who we are at all times. It's super important to us. So they go to raddiversified.com. It's RAD Diversified.com to get deeper with us, to look at what we're doing. And as well, once you're there, take your time, do your due diligence, right? Anybody in the world who ever rushes you to make an investment is somebody you should run away and not invest in. And so for us, we want you to take your time, do your due diligence, look at our assets, look at our properties, know who we are, read our offering circular, do the things that you do. And then when you're ready, right, let us know that you're ready to make an investment, and we'll support you with, making sure that it's easy for you, whether that's like IRAs, 401k,
No worries. Maybe too long. Ladies and gentlemen, Dutch, I'd like to thank you and congratulate you on all of your success today. We're so excited for what you're doing. Dutch Mendenhall, RAD Diversified REIT. Thank you, Dutch.
11, 12.